Hi everyone, it's Karen here. Welcome back to my channel. As you've noticed this week, I have a theme going on where I'm challenging people to create things out of very inexpensive products or recycled products. I'm trying to be conscious and trying to teach people how to create art even if you cannot buy the most expensive products out on the market. Because art comes from within us, from within our soul, and we need to express it any way we can. As long as we express it, then it doesn't really matter what we're using. So this whole week I've been trying to be very frugal and use only things either made of recycled materials or things that I'm making at home, or even very cheap things from the dollar store. It was a challenge given to me by my friend Maria, and if you watch the videos on Personal Art Diaries and also the Motivational Monday series that I have, you will know that that's the theme for this week, and it encourages us to do that. I really wanted to focus on explaining every single step on how to do something, how to do art inexpensively. Today's video is focusing on stencils. I've already done a video on how to make your own junk journal, how to make gesso and texture paste, but I love using gesso and texture paste through a stencil. So I thought, you know what, let me show you how to create a stencil out of nothing. And there's many different ways to do that. So there's 5 ways that I'm going to show you how to do stenciling without having to buy any stencil. So let's get started. So the first technique to create a stencil is using a thick cardboard paper, packaging paper, or like thick cardstock. You could use cardboard. Basically anything goes. If you have packaging from other products, you can use that to create that. There's many ways you can do this. I put a self-healing mat underneath here because the main thing is that you can do is that you can definitely use an X-Acto knife to cut little pieces from this. So for example, you could draw something, draw like circles for example, or triangles, and cut them out, and that creates a stencil. You could also do squares and create like a checkered pattern. So all you have to do is just basically cut and create this. Now for circles it's probably a little bit more difficult, so you could probably use a hole puncher, or if you have some punches like this one. I mean, I'm trying to be frugal, so these are maybe expensive, so if you don't have these, don't worry about it. You can make it in other ways. If you have something like a circle cutter, you can create a stencil with a circle cutter or even with a flower. Now if you don't want to like draw your own pattern, you can go ahead and print something from a computer or something, or just a drawing, and go ahead and use that to create a pattern behind it. So there you go. It's the easiest way to create a stencil this way. And obviously this takes time, but if you're trying to save money, then that's a really good way of doing it. So you can make the images as small or as big as you want, and then what you can do is, for example, let me just make a bigger one so you can really see what I mean. So I'm going to make a big square, or rectangle, more to say. Okay, just make sure that when your paper is very thick, to make sure that you really cut through the edges. So what's nice about making your own stencils is that you can actually create both the mask and the stencil. So for example, you're making the hole for the stencil, but at the same time you're creating a mask with the one that is left behind. So let me show you what I mean. So for example, let's say I take this stencil and I want to add some paste onto it. So I'm going to take the paste that I actually just made recently. Take the paste that I'm actually just made recently, and using a little bit of this palette, I'm going to add it on top. Then I lift the stencil, and there you go, you get the pattern. You could also do something different where you have, as I said, the mask, right? And you can mask this on top, and then grab something like ink and then use this as a mask to go around it. So let me show you what I mean. just to kind of make you understand, and you can glue this to the background. So right now it's moving because I didn't glue it, but you could add some adhesive to it. So what I'm saying is that it creates that opposite mask effect. So a great way is to use packaging, to use cardboard, basically to use any type of product that you can cut up and use as a stencil. So you can save a lot of money if you're, you have to cut very meticulously and have a lot of patience with that. But it's a great way of saving money that way and creating cool stencils, because you can basically design almost anything. Now the other option for this is if you let's say have a die cutting machine or a silhouette, then you can definitely die cut some shapes or some patterns and use it as a stencil as well. So if you have something like a thick cardboard, you can run it through your die cutting machine. But that's obviously a little bit more expensive. But if that's something that you want and you don't want to spend money on stencils, that's a great idea to do as well. Along the same lines, you can use things like packaging, acetate packaging or plastic packaging to create stencils as well. So regular stencils are actually made from a plastic called Mylar. Like you can see here, these are the regular Mylar stencils, but you could create basically stencils out of anything, as I said. So cardboard was the first one, then you have things like this acetate, and it can also be done, for example, out of craft foam. That would be really cool because it's really easy to cut. So you could create, let's say, like lines that can be done as stencils. So let me just show you what I mean. So you could create, like, let's say, a pattern of lines that is a stencil. And again, you can be very exact with things, and this is going to create a very thick version of it, while this one will probably create a very thin version of it. So let me just do the same thing. I will cut a piece of it. Obviously I'm not cutting the whole stencil because I don't have that much time to show you in this video, but I just want to show you that it works, and then you can just go ahead and make your own. If you do make any stencils inspired by this video, please hashtag me. I would love to see your creation. It's very, very cool for me to see the ideas that other people get inspired by, or that they want, or they create with my inspirations. Okay, so there we go. You could also cut things with scissors, but I find this easier. Now let's go back to this same thing and let's see how this works. So I'm going to take this again. So this is the paste that I created, and look how beautiful it looks with the acetate. Now let's try it with this one. This one is probably going to give us a much thicker impression just because the foam is so thick. And voila! How cool is that? So really, really cool ideas that you can create. The craft foam works beautifully, and that's such an easy thing to cut, so you can really create cool patterns with it. So far we have 3 ideas on how to create stencils or masks, for that matter, because again, any piece that you remove you can use as a mask. And the best type of products are the best ones because you actually don't need to do anything with them. They're already available for you in many different places. So these are household items or things you find in nature or wherever you find them that you can use as stencils. So for example, you could use this. This is from my avocados. You can use things like burlap, punchinella, or which you use like for gift wrapping. Old doilies. This is my grandmother's doily, so I kept it, and you could use it as a stencil. It would look amazing. Apart from that, you could actually use all these products that I'm showing you right here to create texture in your projects. So this is a double whammy because you can use it as a stencil and also use it as like something that create texture in a project. So let me show you, but just kind of give you the idea of what kind of things you can do. And I'm sure you can go around your house and find many different household items that can create a stencil out of things. So I wouldn't be surprised that you will find more, and go ahead and leave me a comment and tell me what kind of things you found that would be amazing to use. I am going to work on this old packaging just to show you the ideas that I have. And let me just, I don't want to waste all my whole modeling paste on this because I want to use it for a project to show you how to use the homemade modeling paste. So I'm going to just grab regular modeling paste. And it's only because, as I said, I don't want to waste the one that I made homemade because I made enough for the projects. And this will just work perfectly as well. And let's just play around with this and see how it works. So here I have some of the modeling paste. Let's see how it works with the Punchinella. I'm sure it will work amazingly through it. So that is a great way of creating a stencil. Then I want to, I'm going to try to do it with the burlap. Let's see how it works. So any different type of fabric that has holes like this would work perfectly. Let's lift it up. You see, you can still create a texture with it. This one wasn't as great. Let's see how it works with this avocado thing. It does move a little bit, but that's okay. That's texture for your backgrounds, right? So I don't mind that. And let me see how it goes. Oh, how cool is that? So you see, you get this really cool texture. I think the modeling paste is a little bit thicker. And let's try a little bit of this doily. Let's see how that works as well. So if you like the distress look of things and you like to create with mixed media, then this is perfect because you could do this as well. If you want things for cards and other things, so you might want something a little bit more exact, then use the cardboard and cut out your own designs. And I have another idea coming up that you might like as well. So let's just, I really like the center here. Let's see if that works. I think it's so thick. The modeling paste, I think, dried up a little bit, so it's really thick. Let's see if this worked. If not, I'm going to show you. No, this didn't work. Okay, so let me show you, and sometimes I show you failures as well. Let me show you a better way to do this, okay? Because I'm sorry, I shouldn't only show you modeling paste. I want to show you a different way. This works well if you use actual sprays, and let me show you what I mean. This is not working just because it's too smooth. Let me get you another paper. You know, the trial and errors of things. Okay, now it should work properly. Okay, there we go. There we go. You see what I mean by a stencil? So now you can use it like that and then stain it at the same time. That's if you're using this doily. Let me just go back to this one and show you how it looks through this. So modeling paste maybe is not the greatest idea with these ones, but if you're using, there you go. You get a really cool stencil. So I should have showed it to you from the beginning this way. And I mean, that's trial and error, as we say. So there we go. We get like the really cool effect of the stencil. So there we go. So we have a different way of creating stencils. You can also obviously use the same thing that we used from this stencil or anything that we created and spray through it as well. And it will create the lines. So you can spray and you can use modeling paste. So that works well as well. For example, if I go back to this square, right, and I spray in it, it will create that square. So it works with these as well. So any type of cutout that you'll do, you can use it with sprays, and especially with the papers, you can use it with modeling paste. I find the other ones were moving too much, and that's why they weren't working. But I think it's important sometimes to show you that failures are part of trying things as well. A very cool way to create a stenciled area is with masking tape. And it's kind of a reverse stencil idea where you could just basically add this to your background, and that creates a stencil area that you can actually ink up or spray or whatever it is that you want. So if you can create your own stencil with, let's say, tape, and then take something like the inks, and it's basically creating a mask. Once you remove the tape, it will show you how cool it looks. It will actually look like you used a stencil, even though you technically didn't. There we go. So it's just a really good way, and it's a quick way to create, and you can go in different directions, different patterns. You can use any washi tape that you want, or any type of tape you want. This is just masking tape, and there you go. You create a stencil that way. So it's a really good way of creating a mask stencil. The next technique is actually one of my favorites, and what it does is that it uses a hot glue gun, and I learned this technique watching it on YouTube from a few different people, and I just love this. And for this you need the glue gun, and you need a heat resist craft mat. I mean, I do have one underneath, but I didn't want to use it on that one because I wanted to be able to move it around and take this away if needed. So I just use this. I'm using this one, which is an old one, to just create it. And what is cool about it is that you can create basically any design. So you can create circles, you can create, you can attach them to each other and just create really cool designs and make your own stencil. And I'll show you how that works. So you could make basically anything. So there's like one stencil. You could do hearts, for example, and basically attach two hearts to each other for a stencil. I mean, you can make these stencils big, like as big as you want, right? And you can create basically anything. It's just cool to do. And then you can use them for your project. So I'm going to just do a little bit of a bigger stencil so I could use this in one of the art journals. So it works out really nice. What I like about the shapes of these is that they're a little bit more organic and not so perfect like regular stencils that have been cut through a machine. Okay, I'm going to let these dry. That way, once they're dry, I can remove them and use them as stencils. Now that this is dry, I want to carefully remove it from the background. You really need to have a non-stick mat. It's really important. That's the only thing. And you could get those probably from like oven mats and things like that, but any acetate or plastic, not everything will work. So there is one stencil, and here is the other one. And obviously the thicker it is, the less it will break, but I love the organic look of this and the shape of this. Okay, so now let me show you how it works on paper. So here we go. I have the same blue spray that I had before. You could probably ink this up as well. So let's try first one with spray. And then let's ink this one up just to see if it works well with it as well. It probably will. Maybe the holes are too big, but it should work well. There we go. Yeah, it works perfectly. So this is a really great way because truthfully glue guns are so cheap to get. They're one of the oldest crafting products there is. So let me show you now. When I lift it up, there is one of the stencil marks. And here is the other one. How cool is that? And I mean, the only reason why it went under it is because there was too much spray in it. Maybe I should hold it a bit further up, but it's just such a cute way of doing a stencil, and I just love this. The last one that I want to tell you about that you can use as stencils is basically using everyday objects or any found objects like these or this or this, or even things like shells, for example. Okay, I'll show you. To create stencil marks, you could use beads, you could use like pearls, anything you want. What you can do is any of this can create a mask over something. So when I take my spray, right, and I spray on this, or even around this, it will create really cool effects. So for example, you will have this organic shaped stencil marks, or this flower shaped, if you say you have something like a card or something that you have, a household item that it has a specific shape, maybe some letters, some chipboard, a heart, some popsicle sticks. Anything can create a mask, which is like the opposite of a stencil, right? So it's really cool to kind of see the difference between things that create a stencil and things that create a mask. And that's the difference between them, is that masking, it's basically masking the surface area, while stencil leaves that surface area open for you to put in the products. So there's many ways to create cool patterns and inexpensive ways to create patterns, and this is what I want to show you, that no, you don't have to always buy expensive products, and that works because you're able to use everyday household items. So this is another way to do that. Let me bring this all out together. So the 5 ways that you can create stencils is by cutting pieces from a cardboard or from a packaging, from acetate or from foam. That's a great way of creating patterns, and you can see the pattern over here. The next one is to use basically household items like the doily, netting, and so forth. All these things are readily available for anyone to use. The third one would be creating a pattern with some tape and making it as a mask, and then discovering the stencil underneath. Then we have the one with it's my favorite, which is the one with the glue gun. And finally, just using household items to use as a mask. So these are just great ideas that you don't have to spend a lot of money on, and they work perfectly for creating any type of mixed media project. So I really hope that you enjoyed this video today and gave you lots of ideas to start your creative process, because that really makes a difference. I just want to encourage you to create. It doesn't really matter what products you have. As long as you're creating, it doesn't really matter what you're using. And that's the most important thing to understand. So I hope you enjoyed this and you get some ideas. If you like this video, please give it a thumbs up and share it with your friends on social media. It's really important that you share it, because if there is somebody like you that needs some ideas on how to create some frugal mixed media, or some frugal crafting, or some frugal ideas, then you know what, this might be the video they might be waiting for, and by you sharing it, you're helping them in their creative journey. If you create any stencils using this video and you create projects with them, please tag me on social media, and also hashtag on Karen's Creative Prompt. That way I can see all your projects and share them with everyone else. And yeah, that's it. I hope you subscribe to my channel and visit me on my website and Instagram. Thanks so much, everyone. Bye.